Welcome to the January Monthly Cup recap. This was Faeria's last monthly cup in early access and put the players to the test with a new metagame following a major balance patch. As usual, the bracket was stacked with the best players in all of Faeria. IS-73 and Incognito D both held $150 bounties for their placements in the December monthly cup. Let's find out who became January's monthly cup champion. The December monthly cup champion IS-73 returned to the spotlight to take on Bubbles in round 1. Aya leads with a mono red Lord of Terror burn deck which slowly chips away at Bubbles' health. A Cypher on the left side secures the board, but for Bubbles it's too late. Aya finds the bird he needs and takes the first game. Bubbles switched to his mono blue and took control of the right side of the board. Once again, Bubbles made an aggressive push and was very close to taking this game. Unfortunately for him, Aya was able to squeeze enough burn damage to finish him off with a flame burst. Bubbles' final deck was yellow events, which had a tough road ahead. Both players established themselves around their own orbs, leading to a standoff. Bubbles made one last push to take the game from Aya with an army of Imperial guards. Aya was able to navigate around their healing abilities and find a lethal. Aya moved on in the tournament to face Strudel. Monthly Cup runner-up Incognito D fell to XYZ and Cappuccino defeated Trek. Up next would be tournament favourite King Dan's versus Faeria Tails Mayhem. Dan's takes an early defensive lead and is able to keep Mayhem at bay while setting up a sturdy shell to double collect. Mayhem would try to gain an advantage with Altar of Souls, but a Triton's Banquet on Sturdy allowed Dan's to clear it. From that point, Sturdy would apply unbearable pressure to Mayhem's orb, resulting in a victory. Mayhem would follow up with his blue 7s. Dan's hand couldn't match Mayhem's opener and is quickly overwhelmed. Dan's tried to harvest with expensive Wave Crash Colossi, but Mayhem easily took the lead and wins the match. Dan's would respond with an Altar of Souls version of yellow events. An Orodrim Fanatic was able to set up an aggressive desert. From that point, the Altar of Souls pumped out an alarming amount of slaughtering shadows that Mayhem couldn't handle. Mayhem had to win the rest of the series with his red-yellow combat burn. Things started well for Dan's with his Colleen taking control of the board. A clunky opening hand of Scourge Flames were finally able to see play, and Dan's couldn't stop the combat damage. Dan's would have to win with his mid-range red. Tension rose on the board as both players battled for well control. Mayhem's Cypher applied pressure, but Dan's was able to answer it and make a counterattack. Scourge Flame came to the rescue, stopping Dan's from finding a lethal. One flame burst was all Dan's needed, but he didn't find it, and Mayhem was able to win the series with a flame burst of his own. Mayhem moved on to the next round with his teammates Imperia and Kahilian. Tournament favourites Cappuccino and Modnik were both eliminated. Faeria Tail were already off to a strong start, and Imperia would be the next member to play. He would go up against Strudel, who defeated the December monthly cup champion IS-73. Strudel used Prophet of the Tides in the early game to set up aggression with his mid-range blue. Imperia is overwhelmed by a swarm of bulky blue creatures and relies on a Hellfire to stabilize. The Hellfire whiffs and a Mirror Phantasm is left alive to finish off Imperia. Imperia switched to mid-range red and a tense match unfolded. Both players fought relentlessly for right side well control, but Imperia managed to seize the day with a ground shaker. A bomb slinger finished off Strudel's last line of defense and tied the series for Imperia. Strudel queued his yellow events deck that relied on the power of Altar of Souls. However, the combination of Derelict Towers and Ground Shakers cleaned up the slaughtering shadows with ease. Imperia took another game off Strudel, moving to match point. A mono red mirror would decide Strudel's fate. Imperia took swift control of the right side and was able to set up an aggressive mountain. The Axe Grinder and Firebringer duo was too much for Strudel to handle and secured another victory for Team Faeria Tail. Faeria Tail were on fire this event, but only one Frenchman could go to the finals. The teammates battled it out for their shot at the cup. Kiilstofte led with his yellow rush and put Imperia on the back foot straight away. Imperia tried to defend, but his slow hand made it difficult. Imperia called to Hellfire once again to save him, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. Imperia countered the rushdown with aggressive play of his own. His mid-range deck was able to hold off Kiilstofte long enough to set up his own offense. A decisive Groundshaker cleared the board, followed by a Horsemaster play that stopped Kiilstofte from making any form of comeback. Kiilstofte queued up his green-blue enchantment but struggled to find his footing in the match. Imperia played a board control strategy until his opponent could no longer defend effectively. Kiilstofte couldn't keep up with the efficiency of red and was eventually overwhelmed. Kiilstofte's last deck was a red rush but struggled against the efficiency of Derelict Tower. Imperia answered any threat Kiilstofte played. Once he had stabilised, it was impossible for Kiilstofte to apply pressure and defend against Imperia's aggression. Imperia booked himself a spot in the finals while Kiilstofte had to battle for prize money in the third place match. XYZ and Mayhem made it to the second semi-final. 3 players from Team Faeria Tail made top 4 in this cup. Due to timing issues, we caught the game after the first match had been played, with Mayhem taking a 1-0 lead. Game 2 kicked off with XYZ defending against Yellow Rush. Mayhem applied early pressure, and with an unconventional Lord of the Wastes, he was able to gain enough Faeria to break through XYZ's defences. XYZ's last deck was Green-Yellow Sacrifice. Mayhem was able to burst through his defences and make an excellent positional play with Windgate. Altar of Souls provided too much pressure and XYZ was overwhelmed. The January monthly cup concluded with a Faeria Tail final. Imperia would take on Mayhem for the cup and $1,500. Before that, XYZ and Kiilstofte battled it out for a slice of the pie. The winner took home $500 while the loser received nothing. XYZ started with his blue Dreamreaver and had to defend against Kiilstofte's yellow rush. Gabrian Enchantress helped ease the pressure of Slaughtering Shadows, while an Ancient Herald went for damage. However, it couldn't win the race against the Zealous Crusader. XYZ countered with green-red Crackthorn, had a great start with an early Faeria tree. Architect pumped the tree's life for a massive burst of Faeria. After that, it was business as usual for Crackthorn, and XYZ overwhelmed Kiilstofte. Kiilstofte lined up green-blue enchantment to counter Crackthorn. Both players fought for the right side, but a defensive Frogify backfired for Kiilstofte. The little frog got powered up and wreaked havoc around the board. Cypher came down for XYZ to finish what the frog started and won the match. Red Rush was Kiilstofte's last hope to win the series. Once again, Derelict Tower shut down his aggression, with Architects recharging their life. Kiilstofte stabilised on board until Garadan soared down and rained destruction on his creatures. XYZ was victorious and won $500. The deciding match of the tournament was between teammates Imperia and Mayhem. Only one could become our monthly cup champion. Mayhem's Yellow Rush stormed down the board to meet Imperia's Blue Sevens. Mayhem managed to set up 2 Altar of Souls and swarmed the field with Slaughtering Shadows. Beirut came down to try and defend, but the Shadows and a Frog are able to seal the game. Imperia fell back to his mid-range red but played in a rush style. Altar of Souls made its return, but Groundshakers checked the first wave of Shadows. Mayhem tried another round of Shadows, but the second Groundshaker was too crippling and Mayhem couldn't come back. Red-Yellow Combat Burn was Mayhem's next deck. Imperia fought for well control, but an aggressive shift allowed Mayhem to apply pressure. Imperia managed to stabilize on board, but the damage had already been done, and Mayhem finished the match with a combo of Scourge Flame and Flame Bursts. Imperia's final deck was Yellow Events and took a strong lead with Windstorm Charger and Archer. A choke in sand gave Imperia the tempo he needed to be the aggressor. An Altar of Souls and Windstorm Colossus came down to help keep on the pressure. Mayhem tried to defend, but an Orodrim Fanatic was ripped off the top and allowed Imperia to set up lethal. The final match would be decided for Mayhem with his blue 7s. Imperia took a swift lead with Yellow Event's efficient range of removal. Mayhem patiently waited for the perfect Garadan and made a second copy of him with Aurora's creation. One Garadan was a game changer, but the second would lock out the match and win the series. An epic showdown concluded between the Frenchmen, and Mayhem became our reigning champion. After 2 months of waiting, we return to the Faeria Monthly Cup, where Mayhem will defend his crown.